Figuring out how to handle a once-in-a-century pandemic is no easy task, and as we've seen, states across the country have vastly different approaches.
Now, a year into the pandemic here in Colorado, we are taking a look at what worked and what didn't in our state. Denver 7's Russell Haythorne has this 360 report card.
Effective immediately, state of Colorado and I are ordering temporary suspension for 30 days of dine-in services at restaurants and bars.
1 year after the COVID shutdowns, it's time to go 360 and grade Colorado on its COVID response.
Yes.
We asked the Miller Chair of Applied Economics at the University of Denver, Jack Strauss, to help us out. Let's start with employment. According to tracktherecovery.org, unfortunately, employment is down across all three wage categories in Colorado. 20% among Colorado's lowest wage workers, 9.7% among middle wage workers, and 1.4% among highest wage workers.
Unfortunately, Colorado's lagging behind the rest of the nation.
Jack's grade for Colorado on employment, a big fat D. Now let's track consumer spending. It's way down in Colorado as well. In fact, we rank lower than 47 other states in terms of declines in consumer spending since COVID lockdowns began. Only Alaska and Delaware had bigger declines in consumer spending than Colorado.
Most of our businesses closed for some period of time.
Walter Eisenberg with Sage Hospitality says they had to lay off 90% of their hotel staff in Denver and elsewhere because no one was visiting.
Just horrible.
We're doing worse than most of the rest of the country.
Jack's grade for Colorado in consumer spending declines, another D. Moving on to small business revenues, Colorado is down 30%, but the U.S. as a whole is down 33%, so we're above average.
When you have COVID come in, you're like, nobody's walking down the street. Like, what's going on?
Fatima Dickerson, whose family has owned Welton Street Cafe since the 80s, says keeping the doors open this past year has been a huge challenge.
It brings out a different type of grit. You know, like, what are you really made of?
Our small businesses in Colorado are suffering.
Jack's grade for Colorado in small business revenues, above average, a B. And there is other good news. Colorado has fewer COVID-19 deaths per capita than 41 other states, with 105 deaths per 100,000 people. Doctors say that's attributable to the lockdowns and how serious Coloradans are taking the virus.
The saying, no pain, no gain. And so hopefully there's not too much pain with this, but the gain is definitely there.
Doctors say vaccine distribution has also been fairly smooth in Colorado.
The rollout, in my opinion, is going as good or better than expected.
Jack's grade for Colorado in the public health category, an A. And in terms of education, Colorado is actually doing better than most of the country. Colorado's progress in math, for example, is up 8.2%, and that's actually 7% higher than the rest of the U.S. on average. Jack's grade for Colorado in education, a B. The bottom line, according to the data, states with more aggressive shutdowns did suffer more economically, but benefited in terms of public health and education. Russell Haythorne, Denver 7.
Sort of a mixed bag there. We want to get your take. What grade do you give Colorado's response to the pandemic? You can email us at 360@thedenverchannel.com.